Well, according to Kamala Harris and the pro-abortion mainstream media, including here in New Zealand, women are dying in the US because pro-life laws don't allow abortion on demand. And last week, in an attempt to try and bolster their argument, they were jumping on two tragic cases of two women who died in Georgia, the state of Georgia. Now, Georgia's heartbeat law says that if you can detect the heartbeat of the unborn child, you can't kill it, which sounds pretty reasonable to most people. But here's what most of the media won't tell you about these two very sad cases. These women died after attempting chemical or so-called medical or medication abortions, as we have here in New Zealand. One woman died of sepsis because a chemical abortion failed, and the other died as a result of complications from the medical abortion. An autopsy report in the second case also revealed that the woman had a lethal combination of painkillers, including the dangerous opioid fentanyl in her system. But that didn't stop the abortion lobby and the media blaming Trump. So here's the report from ProPublica. Hadn't heard of it before. Seemingly a leftist fake news website, but it's about Amber Nicole Thurman, who died after she took the abortion pill to abort her twin babies, which then caused complications and left parts of her twin unborn babies inside her.
In 2022, after she was unable to get a legal abortion in Georgia and did not receive timely medical care. The state's Maternal Mortality Review Committee recently concluded that her death was preventable. Amber showed up at the Piedmont Henry Hospital after she'd taken abortion pills and experienced a rare complication. She had not expelled all of the fetal tissue from her body. She was in need of a D&C, a routine procedure to clear the tissue from her uterus. But just that summer, her state criminalized the procedure. Any doctor who violated the new law could face up to a decade in prison. Amber waited in pain in a hospital bed as doctors monitored her infection spreading, her blood pressure sinking, and her organs beginning to fail. It took doctors 20 hours to finally operate. By then, it was too late. Amber was an otherwise healthy 28-year-old medical assistant and mother of a 6-year-old son. She had just moved into her own apartment with a gated community and a pool and had plans to enroll in nursing school. She would have turned 31 this week. ProPublica reached out to the hospital and to the doctors involved with Amber's care. They did not explain their thinking or why they decided to wait to perform a D&C. A committee of experts said that in Amber's case, the delay had a large impact. If she had received the D&C right away, there was a good chance that she would have survived. The Food and Drug Administration approved mifepristone, or the abortion pill, 25 years ago, so there's an extensive record of safety with this drug. Out of nearly 6 million women who've taken it, 32 deaths were reported through 2022. Of those, 11 involved deadly infections. Amber had to drive out of state to North Carolina to receive the pills. Amber's case marks the first time an abortion-related death, officially deemed preventable, is coming to public light. Amber and a second woman, Candy Miller, who also died in Georgia in 2022, died because they couldn't access legal abortion or timely medical care in their state.
Yeah, okay. So extensive record of safety, well, except for the unborn child, of course, from taking abortion pills, and 32 deaths just in that 1 year. Nothing to see here, apparently. Now, you'll see they mention another woman, and we'll come back to that case. So they're saying Thurman's death was preventable because she drove from Georgia to North Carolina to get an abortion when she was 9 weeks pregnant with twins, but because of a traffic jam, she missed her appointment, so she was given abortion pills, which every pro-abortionist tells you is safe and just like eating lollies. Oh, except for the killing of the unborn baby bit. And then she drove back to Georgia, where she began suffering serious complications from sepsis, which is a potentially fatal response to bacterial infection. Yes, there are complications from medical abortions. And then, according to this report, doctors in Georgia didn't perform a so-called D&C procedure in order to save the life of the mother. They were worried they might be prosecuted under the law. But then, right at the end, they happened to mention that none of this is affected by Georgia's heartbeat law because the law has clear exceptions in emergencies where the life of the mother is at stake. Just a little tiny disclaimer there. Now, here's what the law actually says, and this is from the Georgia Department of Health. The law provides that no abortion shall be performed if the unborn child has a detectable human heartbeat except in the event of a medical emergency or medically futile pregnancy, or in cases involving rape or incest. And the law does not prohibit the removal of a dead unborn child caused by a spontaneous abortion or the removal of an ectopic pregnancy. Now, here's another report which also sort of makes up things.
All new tonight at 6 o'clock, a Georgia woman has been identified as one of the first known deaths related to a lack of abortion care access.
Yeah, that's according to her family and state documentation obtained by nonprofit newsroom ProPublica. 11 Live investigator Savannah Levin's joining us in studio after reaching out to the family herself here. Savannah, what did you learn?
Well, so I know Amber Thurman died waiting 18 hours for a DNC. That's a surgical procedure sometimes used in abortions. The report finding her death likely could have been prevented.
It was jarring, shocking, and disheartening that my Georgia doctors could not provide me with the standard of care.
Georgia women and medical providers testified before Senator Jon Ossoff's Human Rights Subcommittee Monday in opposition to Georgia's law banning abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected. Medical experts say that's typically around 6 weeks. At the same time as that testimony unfolded, nonprofit newsroom ProPublica released a report on internal documents it obtained from the Georgia committee tasked with reviewing pregnancy-related deaths. The report indicated the committee, run by the State Department of Health, determined the death of 28-year-old Amber Thurman was likely preventable if she'd had access to abortion care in her home state of Georgia.
Or didn't take the abortion
report
pill.
states Amber was going on 8 weeks pregnant at the time. Her family sharing with 11 Alive that she drove to North Carolina to obtain FDA-approved medication to terminate the pregnancy, saying by the time she arrived back to Georgia, she'd started bleeding heavily. According to medical records cited by ProPublica, Amber was rushed to a hospital in Metro Atlanta, where doctors noted twice that a DNC procedure should be considered to remove the infection. But the procedure, often used for abortions, wasn't done, not even when Amber became septic.
She was clearly septic, and she was hemorrhaging. She should have had a DNC right then and there.
Dr. Lillian Shapiro with Ideal Gynecology in Atlanta wasn't a part of Amber's care team, but says the state's so-called heartbeat law has caused confusion for medical providers who might not know when they're legally able to intervene.
My heart goes out to them because they knew the answer. They knew the answer, but they have had fear put into them by the court system, by these new laws that they don't understand.
Vice President Kamala Harris issuing a statement Tuesday, writing in part, "This is exactly what we feared when Roe was struck down, and now women are dying."
Yep, well, completely fake news, but Kamala Harris said this, and in the tweet she said a young mother from Georgia should be alive today, raising her son, and her other unborn children, and pursuing her dream of attending nursing school. This is exactly what we feared when Roe v. Wade was struck down. In more than 20 states, Trump abortion bans prevent doctors from providing basic medical care. I mean, can you hear the deafening contradiction there of a king-size hypocrite who loves abortion at all costs? I mean, she says this mother should be alive raising her son. This mother. Actually, what she should have said was, it's this mother should be alive raising her son and her twins. These children should be alive. You see, 3 people have died as a result of the cultural championing of killing the unborn child, abortion. But then Kamala had a lovely softball interview with Oprah Winfrey, and together they blamed Amber Thurman's death on pro-life laws, and then played this lovely montage which explains that her death was not in fact due to pro-life laws, but complications from abortion drugs. Now, note this is a set-up interview. It's a soft interview for Kamala from a mate, pre-planned, marketing the narrative. This was never an interview of a presidential candidate. This was a paid advertisement, but this is how far the mainstream media have fallen never to recover. Have a watch.
Georgia made national headlines. Amber's case came to light through the reporting of journalist Kavitha Sarana with ProPublica. And so listen to her story. 2 years ago, 28-year-old Amber Nicole Thurman, a medical assistant and a single mother to a 6-year-old boy, found out she was pregnant. Amber had just secured her own apartment and was thinking about going to nursing school. She made the decision to terminate her pregnancy. A strict abortion ban had recently taken place in her home state of Georgia, which caused Amber to travel to North Carolina for the procedure. Traffic made her miss the appointment, so the clinic gave her medication, what are known as abortion pills.
Oh.
Once back home, Amber experienced profuse bleeding, vomiting, severe pain. She eventually passed out. Her boyfriend called for an ambulance.
Oh, her boyfriend now.
At the Georgia hospital, Amber's condition deteriorated quickly. In a rare occurrence, it was discovered her body had not expelled all the fetal tissue and an infection was spreading. Official Georgia State medical expert analysis of her case says Amber should have received a life-saving D&C, but doctors waited 20 hours before deciding to take her to surgery. Amber's blood pressure had taken a dive. Her organs had started failing. In the operating room, her heart stopped. On the way to surgery, Amber's last words to her mother were, "Promise me you'll take care of my son."
I mean, it's very sad, but take care of my son, but not my twins. And remember, the same abortion pills would have been given to her in Georgia. The abortion pills were the problem. Now, USA Today reported about where Amber's family were what I would call exploited or showcased by Kamala Harris and Oprah Winfrey.
It's very disheartening that my sister was allowed to suffer for 20 hours. She suffered. It was nothing that we could do to help her. We trusted the healthcare professionals to do their job and save her, but they failed her.
When ProPublica came to my home, I pushed them away. No, but Kavitha, she was persistent. She said, it was something that you needed to know. You have to hear me. Women around the world, people around the world need to know that this was preventable. She was loved by a family, a strong family. And we would have done whatever to get my baby, our baby, the help that she needed.
Yeah, pushy media, pushy Kamala, so keen to exploit the story for the pro-abortion narrative. Yes, it was preventable, totally. And they say they would have done whatever. It's so sad. Amber is a victim of a cultish death abortion narrative, which is killing children and harming untold women. Now, as the Daily Signal reported, Thurman, whose case Harris also highlighted in a Georgia speech Friday, tragically died reportedly after the abortion pill mifepristone caused sepsis infection. That's because the Biden-Harris FDA enabled women to manage risky and traumatic chemical abortions at home alone without mandated help from medical professionals. Thurman would likely be alive without the Biden-Harris FDA. Some Liberals blame Georgia's pro-life limits on abortion for Thurman's death. But Georgia state law explicitly allows abortions when a mother's life or physical health is at risk. Indeed, as this Independent Woman's Voice interactive national map shows, abortion is legal in all 50 states, always for the life of the mother, as well as for additional exceptions and timeframes. Now, let me just show you that map. Abortion is allowed in all states to protect the life of the mother. Let me repeat that. Although the media often neglect to mention it, every state in the US, including states with near total restrictions on abortion, has an exception for the life of the mother. But ironically, the abortion pill does not always protect the life of the mother, and it definitely doesn't protect the unborn child. And you'll note that in Georgia, where this story is based, there are exceptions for the life of the mother. Now, the report continues. Thurman underwent a chemical abortion across state lines in North Carolina prior to her arrival in a Georgia emergency room. Sadly, when she arrived at the hospital, her unborn twins already reportedly showed no heart activity. That means it was the alleged malpractice of the hospital physicians who failed to properly treat Thurman, whose unborn children were already dead. Dangerous chemical abortions, known as the pill, are now the most common method of terminating a pregnancy. Without proper monitoring, they are a serious threat to women's health and require greater medical scrutiny. One notable research study published in the academic journal Obstetrics and Gynecology reported on a longitudinal analysis of more than 40,000 abortions in Finland between 2000 and 2006. And that study found that 1 in 5 women undergoing chemical abortions experienced complications, 4 times more than the number of women who experienced complications from surgical abortions. The fact that chemical abortions involve less doctor supervision than surgical procedures is likely a factor in those increased complications. Now, remember that these are now the norm in New Zealand also, with home delivery of the abortion pill included, and no supervision or care for the pregnant woman. Now, it says Dr. Christina Francis, CEO of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and a board-certified OB-GYN who has practiced for 2 decades, said that Thurman's death was caused by legal abortion drugs as well as medical negligence. And Daily Wire also had a report on this issue, and they said the pro-life movement didn't kill this woman, the abortion pill did. These drugs are not, in fact, as safe as Tylenol, as Planned Parenthood claims. Researchers have long understood that sepsis is a rare but potentially fatal adverse effect of abortion drugs. What can happen is that in some cases, after these drugs kill the child, there's dead tissue that remains. And that tissue can cause a serious infection if it's not expelled from the body. So the pill can cause the intended death of the child and the unintended death of the mother. Now, Lila Rose nailed it, as she always does, when she said this. Kamala Harris is lying. Abortion pills killed Amber Thurman as well as her twin babies. It is reprehensible to use a mother's tragic and preventable death due to abortion to advance more abortions. It's like suggesting putting out a forest fire with gasoline. And as you can see there below Kamala Harris's tweet, there's community notes, which is where the Twitter community is correcting the lies of Kamala Harris. And then there's the second case. Now, once again, it's from this pro-abortion website, ProPublica, which you've probably never heard of and probably don't want to know about. But according to Daily Wire, it said this: there's another Georgia woman mentioned in this report from ProPublica named Candy Miller. She was a 41-year-old mother of 3 who suffered from diabetes, lupus and hypertension. Apparently her health was so fragile that doctors warned another pregnancy could kill her. According to ProPublica, when she became pregnant in 2022, she avoided doctors and navigated an abortion on her own. She ordered the abortion pills online, but she didn't expel all the fetal tissue and would need a D&C procedure to clear it from her uterus and stave off sepsis, a grave and painful infection. Her teenage son watched her suffer for days after she took the pills, bedridden and moaning. In the early hours of November 12, 2022, her husband found her unresponsive in bed, her 3-year-old daughter at her side. An autopsy later found a lethal combination of painkillers, including the dangerous opioid fentanyl. Yes, fentanyl. She needed a D&C to remove the parts of her deceased baby, but stayed at home and didn't go to the emergency room or a doctor for care. Look, abortion pills are supposed to be safe, aren't they? How does a lay person determine what is or is not normal after taking the abortion pill? She will know deep down that this drug is killing a life inside her. And they conclude in their report, if doctors or patients misunderstand the law, that's not the law's fault. If this woman had gone to the hospital instead of taking a lethal combination of painkillers, then doctors could have saved her life. Under Georgia law, they would have been able to do that. You see, in reality, abortion pills are what led to the deaths of these women and their children in Georgia. These mothers' decision to kill their children is the reason that all of this happened. Every reasonable person who looks at these cases will come to that conclusion. And yet, as Daily Wire says, the Democrats have found a way to make these deaths an indictment of the pro-life movement, and once again, the media is going along with it. Well, here's the truth. The pill can cause the intended death of the child, but it can also cause the unintended death of the mother. But Kamala isn't going to tell the truth about that. Now, just finally, here she is with the National Association of Black Journalists in the same week, getting yet another embarrassingly softball interview and allowed to tell absolute porkies. And note that even when she gets a question, she rejects any mention of restrictions. She just talks about protections to perform abortions whenever you want. Now, just before I show you this clip, Daily Wire actually said this: Kamala Harris lies about the death of a young woman and her children in Georgia. Then she says you're immoral if you think that the government should tell a woman what to do about her own body and her life and her best interests. Kamala also suggests that Georgia law bans abortion in cases of rape and incest, which isn't true. And instead of any kind of follow-up, she then gets asked about her joy. Have a watch.
Anyone here has heard most recently the stories out of Georgia. Tragic story about a young woman who died because it appears the people who should have given her health care were afraid they'd be criminalized after the Dobbs decision came down. Laws that make no exception even for rape or incest, which means that you're telling a survivor of a crime of a violation to their body that they have no right to make a decision about what happens to their body next, which is immoral. An approach that doesn't take into account that most people, I think, agree you don't have to abandon your faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do with her body. If she chooses, she will talk with her pastor, her priest, her rabbi, her imam, but it should not be the government or Donald Trump telling her what to do about her own body and her life. So that's where I stand. We need to put back in place the protection of Roe v. Wade and put that into law.
And those restrictions that are also.
Restrictions?
We need to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade and let an individual in consultation with her doctor make the decision based on what she can determine, because she's smart enough to know what's in her best interest instead of having her government tell her what to do, especially a bunch of people in these state capitals who think they're in a better position to tell her what to do than she is to know what's in her best interest.
Before we conclude, Madam Vice President, Joyful Warrior has been used to describe your campaign.
You didn't see that just a minute ago, though. Okay, I'm back to my joyful part.
And your opponent and Republicans have at times weaponized you laughing in campaign ads, for example.
Unbelievable. Yeah, they're just talking about women dying, pregnant women dying, unborn children being killed, and then they go on to joy. I mean, it's nauseating to watch, isn't it? Here's the massive irony which the media, including here in New Zealand, will never admit. It's not Trump or the Supreme Court or Republicans or pro-lifers that are at fault. Abortion is responsible for the tragic death of both these women and their children.